Why did Henry VIII fail at school? Because he lopped off the heads of all his Tudors. Get it? Okay, hi guys, and welcome to the show. As promised, a full review of the 54 here. Now, before we get into it, I highly recommend you watch this video first for full context about my love-hate relationship with the Bland Bay. Secondly, please make sure you hit subscribe and like this video. For some reason, YouTube is still unsubscribing people. It's happening to a lot of YouTubers. Do make sure you are subscribed because you've probably missed months and months of content. And as you can imagine, a video like this takes weeks and weeks of production. So I don't want you to miss out. Okay, quick wristwatch check. The Geo PanoMatic Lunar there on a Horween shell cordovan strap by Fluco. I purchased this from Holborn's. It's a dark navy blue to offset the little moon phase, the blue of the hands, and to tie it in with today's ensemble. Let's get on with it, shall we? So pretentious. Ensemble. The 54, as the name implies, is a return to the pre-Big Crown subs that served as the genesis of Tudor's diving aspirations in, well, you guessed it, 1954. This new size, for the current Black Bay line that is, of 37mm in diameter, is as near period correct in scale as the very first generation of Oyster Prince Submariner, the legendary reference 7922. Even more so is the never talked about 36mm, or so-called mini subs. I owned several of those in the early days of the channel, and ironically to much ridicule from the haters. How much times have changed. Che stronzi. However, unlike the 100-meter rated initial antecedents of the early 50s, the depth rating here is thankfully more professionally capable at 200 meters, which historically was introduced in tandem with the iconically big Bondian oversized crown in the reference 7924 in 1958, again without crown guards. Those were introduced in 1959 onwards with the most important Tudor sub of all time, in my opinion at least, which I've also talked about to ad nauseum, the massively important 7928. I still think it's the greatest Tudor sub of all time for so many reasons, but perhaps most famously as it was the first one officially issued to the US Navy, essentially putting this watchmaker into a whole new realm of legendary status, culminating in the Snowflake subs of 1969 onwards, achieving Marine Nationale and Navy SEAL fame, of course. But we're getting a little ahead of ourselves here, so let's rewind back to the 7924 for a moment, which was Tudor's affordable equivalent of Bigger Bro's 6538, which I'm sure by now you all know as the Bond watch of the Connery era, that defined the 007 franchise horologically until dear old Roger came in to live and let die. But aside from dimensions, depth rating and crowns, another notable difference with the 54 is the absence of 15-minute hash marks, which was a nifty little detail divers would use to compute decompression times. This is a symbolic reminder that the 1950s was a deeply formative era in defining the diver design language, with many watchmakers at the time also dipping their flippers, so to speak, in the deeper waters to collectively give birth to the genre as we know it. A rather poetic horological reversal of our own natural selective process when creatures emerged from the shallower waters 390 million years ago with all kinds of adaptations for a terrestrial way of life. The 54, therefore, is a kind of missing link, a reimagined encapsulation of those first steps, but thankfully updated for the modern world. Right, let's start with the materials. Well, obviously we have an aluminium insert, entirely stainless steel, with that wonderfully domed sapphire crystal, which we'll come back to later because it's quite key to this particular model being such a success. Now we have a 60 click bezel, pretty spot on. Not quite the Rolex ceramic level, which I still have not experienced the bezel better than that. In terms of the luminescence, we get that classic Submariner style orientation, which is why the Submariner has not changed in over half a century. With the snowflake, it's very effective if you like snowflakes or not, but the size is really what's important here. I in fact went and got my Explorer, my beloved Old Faithful, out of the bank vault to re-familiarize myself, because it doesn't wear too small. If you're worried about it being too small, do not worry, because trust me, I've owned the 36mm Submariner, Tudor Submariners back in the day. This wears substantially larger due to that 46mm lug to lug, which is just perfect. It really is the Goldilocks sweet spot. 11mm tall, absolutely fantastic. The Submariner has a kind of bubble back effect, a BBL if you will. Tudors have always had a very kind of flush case back. The larger the Black Bay is, the more, you know, like a slab it feels on your wrist. Whereas this, in the smaller size with that thinner slenderness, doesn't feel like a slab any longer. The Submariner pushes it all behind, whereas this is just flat. The bracelet is your standard 3-link oyster style with these faux rivets, which spoilers, we'll discuss in the negatives. But what is fantastic is this T-fit clasp system. Use the shield as a kind of lip, or the bottom of the shield, and then if I zoom in there, you see the little incremental adjustment. I think it's a few millimeters in. Just lift that up, slide it to the desired notch. Solidly constructed, fit that you want. Very wide chamfering on the lugs, which I like because it helps you identify more easily if there's over polishing. So I guess on the secondary market, you could tell that this is pristine, even though it's, you know, got a little bit of wear and tear. In terms of the movement, well, I'll leave all the details on the screen, but time has proven these in-house is very reliable. We're a decade in. And aside from a few problems they had with the GMT, Tudor's heavy investment has very much paid off. Sure, not going to be as serviceable and as affordable to do as the ETAs of my previous Submariners. It's COSC certified. You get that weekend friendly 70-hour power reserve. The reason why it's so good is because they based all this experience from decades of Rolex architecture. You'll see the build, the way they've done the bridges and everything. It's just, well, you know, it's built on all of that knowledge and experience. And I've got to say, the winding is reassuringly solid feeling and quite refined. You don't get any of that graininess of an ETA. Thankfully, they stuck to their guns and kept it a 20mm lug width, which is just fantastic. No odd numbers to jeopardize or sabotage the strap monster certification, to use a Urban Gentry trademark phrase. They've achieved this by actually making the lugs a little bit thinner, not on this side than the outside, but on the inside, which is a very clever but subtle solution. Not sure if anyone else has picked up on that. Now, having designed dozens of dive watches over the years, I can tell you from experience that when you're going up a few hundred meters, it's pretty much a change of gasket. But when you're at this level, there's no reason why the previous Black Bays should have ever been so thick and chunky. I know some people have speculated, it was Tudor future-proofing themselves, getting ready for the new in-house movements, but this is refreshingly slender and actually kind of disproves that theory. For all the big boy serious stuff, that is what the redoubtable Pelagos is for. The real heir apparent to the Tudor Millsub throne. In fact, I can see the poster now. If you had to assault Alcatraz as a frogman to stop a rogue General Ed Harris that's gone bonkers with a suspiciously giant sex toy-like chemical weapon, you would wear the FXD.
Your best. Losers always whine about their best. Winners go home and f prom queen.
The bland bay is precisely that. Bland enough for the chap who is most likely going to be corporate desk diving, whose only risky adventures tend to stay in Vegas. But the overwhelming benefit with the 54 is not just performance or comfort. The flatter case is the closest thing I've ever felt to getting that true Submariner in a Black Bay feeling. I desperately yearned for it back in 2012 with the very first clumsy hockey puck bays that so quickly disappointed me. How they achieved this is to do with a very shrewd bit of dial engineering, and you only notice this reduced depth when compared to other watches side by side. And this allows for more space for the movement by pushing everything upwards, utilizing the inner concave space of that domed glass. Meanwhile, on the outside, the lack of the cherry red triangle on the now monochrome bezel insert achieves a much more convincing sense of verisimilitude, akin to my own motivations to go non-faux patina with my modded Seiko Willard. Interestingly, for the 58, Tudor directly borrowed not from the Tudor portion of the shared underwater universe, but some of the rarest Rolex 6538s. A detail, as with most things in life, you only notice now it's gone. The dial has done away with the charming black matte grainy texture in favour for not a true sunburst effect, but a more subtle satin silkiness. It reminds me of black silk bed sheets owned by dangerous women I highly recommend you should stay well clear of. Trust me on that one. But aside from the overcooked gilt, and I'm talking about the dial here,
Winners go home and the prom queen.
the vintagey vibes cease there, as they've obviously chickened out, only returning the lollipop seconds and not the full Mercedes handset that all the ardent, subby fans prayed for. Unfortunately, what is left is the same incongruity that has cursed every single Black Bay since they first emerged from the pelagic dark waters their name is derived from. Ingeniously, Mercedes handsets were designed for long-term use, to still be differentiable when the dead tritium loom has fallen out of it and ceased to function. The Snowflake Hourhand was devised more for the immediate mission, for martial intention, not for long-term use. Rather macabrely, subconsciously suggests that, oh, well, you might not make it home, but in the moment, everything is critical, right? It's an interesting distinction between them. There was, of course, the ultra-rare and unique to Tudor Lollipop Hourhand, which was a confluence of both styles, but for whatever reason was relegated to only a few transitional models, like the reference 76-100. To me, the ignominious once seen and never unseen problem, which is the mix of a snowflake hourhand without the corresponding snowflake dial, has never worked in my opinion. Tudor knew it themselves back then and pulled it from production when it first ruined their subs in what collectors call the super rare hybrids of the early 1970s. This inherent problem is made increasingly worse when you consider snowflake hands are automatically at odds with the ontological flow of the mainly 1950s design language, as that particular handset was introduced in 1969 and not really becoming prevalent until the early 70s. But then again, not as bad as the whole Hamilton quartz watch that Indiana Jones wore anachronistically in the pre-Seiko Asteron 1960s setting.
Indiana Jones is back. He's sad. His wife left him. His students don't want to sleep with him anymore. And he's the only man alive who misses Shia LaBeouf.
Sorry, Hamilton, but I still love you. It's not the end of the world, like their Black Bay Chrono, which was the worst affront to any self-respecting Tudor fan, even more so than the Lady Gaga incident. Not only did that utterly confuse genres, it devalued Tudor's legitimate racing chrono heritage of the Monte Carlo and big blocks. But more crucially, the worst thing you could ever do in watch design is compromise the core function. And the travesty of an hourhand that covers subdials, rendering it pretty pointless during several hours of the day, well, it's as useless as a eunuch at a porno film shoot. And speaking of negatives, well, in terms of negatives, firstly, they really missed the trick not doing the smiling text and going for this pyramidal, is that even a word, pyramidal? Well, it is now. And I think the faux patina is way overbaked. It looks like it's been left in the oven a little bit too long. I don't know why they didn't go, full modern monochrome with this, considering the success, the blatant success of the monochrome in the larger size. I also think the gilt is a little bit too kind of almost rose gold in its luster, which kind of cheapens it. Reminds me of gold-plated watches, which is never a good thing to do. Also, I don't understand why they didn't go back to the rose dial. I get it in terms of branding. They did it with the first generation, so why not here? It would have been a nice change to do it across all the Black Bays, just to highlight that difference between this and the Pelagos collection. Have the shield for the post 1969 when that shield was introduced, to differentiate the two collections. The rose for the old-timey, old school, and then, but anyway, that's just my logic. I don't know, what do you guys think? To me, a big problem with the Black Bay is the lack of overhang, this coin edge, compared to the notches of, more traditional post 79 28s that introduced the notched bezel. You can't grip it on this side, you have to grip it here, and then with gloves it's quite difficult, which, let's be honest, okay, my diving days are over because of my dicky lungs. I wear gloves while running and I need to access and use the bezel. Here it's quite difficult to get purchase. My dear old subby, this is just night and day. Easy, quick, easy. You can get it from here, get it from here, get it from here. And then lastly, the rivets. I do not understand them. It should have just been flat, had they, well, they missed the trick here, because had they had that expandable oysters back in the day, they were just amazing. Not sure why they don't bring those back. I guess it's too expensive to do. And I guess now you got the T-fit clasp. I like it when rivets and stuff are functional. Even on G-Shocks, when they have those fake screws, heads, merely for aesthetics, or there's no point to them, it kind of kills it for me. Interestingly, if I just bring in this little booklet, this came with my last Tudor unboxing. This came with my vice president. That's the Monarch. I don't know why they don't bring that back. And there we go, look, the Hydronaut. They could have borrowed from this, the design language. Broad arrow hands. You got a much better design bezel there. Why not reference your own lineage? There's so many possibilities and lost gems. Nobody talks about the Hydronaut, and you can't even find them on the Tudor website. The Black Bay, unfortunately, will be the poster child of what happens when an inherently flawed design is derivatively squeezed for every ounce and drop of profit, and it's tarnished it. Now, to be completely honest, I've stopped paying attention to the watch media. Well, it doesn't exist anymore. They're all watch dealers. I get my news from newsletters directly from the brands, press releases, that kind of stuff, and the channels that I follow, that I've discussed in my collecting goals and life goals video that was in January. I didn't even know the 54 existed up until a couple of weeks ago, until I was perusing the pre-owned section of Moyer Fine Jewelers, and shout out to them, they lent me this. I saw 54 and I thought, is that a mistake? Because I know the 58, I reviewed it. And lo and behold, there it was. And I thought, oh, interesting. Oh, it's a little bit smaller. Oh, they've changed this, they've changed that. So of course I borrowed it. And why do I bring up this point? Well, because the hype and the frenzy around it instantly turns me off. I don't like this association with the trust fund baby, nepo baby hipsters that run the watch media. Because trust me, if you live in New York, you know what I'm talking about. And the way they suspiciously all jumped on the bandwagon at the same time, read between the lines. And I think that's why I stopped paying attention. There's a world beyond the Black Bay. I'm still doing it. But to Tudor's credit, I think they did remedy this situation by funding the US Navy SEAL Museum. Instead of squandering their marketing budgets on vacuous celebrities that have nothing to do with the brand, they actually put their money where their mouth is. And I think it was a very noble thing. So they are on the right path. 54 is riding the vintage-inspired wave with more conviction than any Black Bay so far, which is simultaneously both to its detriment and essentially what makes it lovably charming. However, what may have seemed cool a decade ago, now with the vintage-inspired trend being old hat, it seems a little forced in 2026, like Snake Plissken surfing in a schlocky sequel. But regardless, just like that sequel to a classic, it's still lovably fun. And the 54 evokes many of the 65-38 Bondian vibes that all the wannabe 007s yearn for, but simply can't get with a real sub. Unless, of course, you have DuckTales money to burn at auction, and more importantly, the balls big enough to actually use a fragile vintage piece like Connery did. And speaking of which, this perfectly illustrates the overwhelming appeal of the 54.
Positively shocking.
It finally does what the Black Bay was supposed to do originally, evoke classic Submariner vibes in a modern context. And I think Tudor forgot that somewhere along the line. But before you precipitously beg to differ in the comments, ask yourself, just how many vintage subs have you experienced? I certainly regret not pulling the trigger on the 7928 I reviewed donkeys years ago. And with prices having skyrocketed and endless risks of hodgepodges everywhere, especially on eBay, the 54 now represents a risk-free, viable alternative with all the excellent quality, dependability, and yes, brace yourself, the emetic causing value prop. But most importantly, nobody can ever say that this certified dagger watch is bad taste. Sadly, the Datejust or Tudor Vice President-sized crown instantly detracts from that shaken, not stirred feeling. But aside from occasionally setting it or synchronizing the hacking to plant a bomb under the car of your ops, let's be honest, you're not really going to use it that much, especially with that extremely well-endowed power reserve. And personally, I'm fine with it being more of its own thing. Besides, I always cheered for the pinky-ringed villains as a child, with their fantastically cool layers, impressive art collections, and hench girls. It seemed far more logically aspirational, to me at least. But despite my yearning to be a less evil Dr. Evil, I'm still a massive sub fan. And I mustn't hate on Tudor too much, it's taken myself 10 years to find my perfect reference. But at the end of the day, this proves my point perfectly, that despite all the negatives, it's sometimes the imperfections that gives something character. And this is why box ticking and, trying to think empirically on, it does this, it has to have this, and blah, blah, blah. It doesn't matter. It goes out the window. If it doesn't have that feeling, none of it matters. And there we have it, a deeply flawed watch, a hot mess, if you will. Despite all of this, it's the first Black Bay I actually like and would consider buying. If that doesn't speak volumes about the insanity that is watch collecting and this hobby of ours, shout out to D there, then I don't know what does. All right, guys, I'm going to leave it there. Don't forget to like this video, especially if you want to support more free and truly independent non-watch dealer content from an enthusiast's perspective like yourselves. Hit that like button, and I'll catch you in the next episode. Onwards and upwards. Thank you for watching. Ciao.